a number of open school construction projects. Matt, next slide. In September 2018, there was an article in the Hartford Courant, and it was quotes from our mayor regarding the Gaffney project to be closed and the Smalley project, which was ongoing and should be closed. Prior to that article, there was a letter from Board of Education on the self-insurance fund. If people don't recall, the city of New Britain actually closed our self-insurance fund and closed it to their own books. We had a legal letter written over to the mayor, and it was just a coincidence, but 7 days later, this article appeared in the Hartford Courant. From July 17th to September 2019, we had several requests for our director of facilities regarding open school construction projects. A year ago, his assistant passed away, unfortunately. In my discussions with the director, very evasive as to how many projects were open. It was mentioned it was several or a few. In September 2019, after much discussions with the superintendent, we decided to send a letter or an email up to the State Department of Administrative Services, really the school construction area. I discovered, in going back to the state's website, it appeared there may have been 12 or 13 projects that looked like they were open back from June 2018. We sent the request up to the state, and it was confirmed 12 of the 13 projects were still open. The only project that was pending or was in audit was the Gaffney project from the year before. So it's ironic that from 2018, Board of Education was taking, taking shots from the city side about not closing projects in time, but there was 11 other projects prior to Gaffney that remained open and were on the city's books at one time and disappeared. In September and October 2019, the state recommended to us that if we needed assistance to hire a consultant called Construction Advocacy to assist us in closing out projects and also work with the director of facilities. The board in October 2019 approved Construction Advocacy to assist the director of facilities to close projects. Next slide.
And I just wanted to add too, unfortunately with the passing of Gail West, which was tragic, and we knew with the upcoming retirement of our current director of facilities, we decided we need to know what's happening in this department. We really didn't know, and that's what really prompted us to send that communication to the state to inquire about open projects.
In 2020, 2021, our director of facilities retired effectively as of May 1st, 2020. This individual actually came forward to myself and the superintendent several times to ask to stay on through July to close out school construction projects, which we agreed to. On June 18th, you'll see an email from the state to our facilities director, our prior facilities director, looking for additional information on a project 089-0161, which is a small roof project for Smalley. We later found out no response was given to the state. In June 2020, we actually the city received funding, grant funds for two of the projects, Lincoln Elementary School for $1,344,000 and North End Elementary School for $1,237,000. You're going to see slides later on that really show those schools really were outstanding for 13 and 15 years. So usually when you receive your last grant payment before your final payment, you're really at the conclusion of your project. And probably within 2 years after completion, those projects that close and the funding is given over to the city. This is 13 and 15 years after. In December 22, 2020, January 11, 2021, we are now still receiving letters from the state. So all the paperwork has been given to the state, but this follow-up paperwork. So our facilities director, had a job to do like all of us, and none of these projects were closed, and they're still not officially closed either. And now it's being left up to, current staff, along with Construction Advocacy, to keep working with the state to close these projects out.
What's our total dollar amount for that first, when Construction Advocacy came in, the first round, was it $10,000?
Well, we actually appropriated somewhere about $10,000, but at that point in time, we spent last year just under $6,000.
Okay.
but we're finding out that, number of letters that come forward, so we're not even closed on those projects yet. We're still working on them, and that's after the fact. In January 2021, we actually received another email from the state. It went to our former director, it got to our new director, and it really referenced the June 2020 email looking for additional information on a project, which there was never a response. So we're actually working on that project. We're actually working on those 3 projects you see in December 26, 2020 and 2021. And there's a 4th one we just found out today, the state's looking for information. So right now, we're being requested information. The state's still auditing projects, at least 5 of the projects, and more than likely we're going to get more requests from the state. And when the state sends a request over, they send it to the superintendent, and they really look for about a 2-week turnaround for staff to actually have information. And some of this information may be there, it may not be there. So now we're basically digging through the files to basically provide information to the state to actually close these projects down, which should have been closed out by the prior, by the prior person. Next slide. Now this is the list I speak about, the open school construction projects. The state on their website it's an older website. This is the old website out there, and they closed it down as of June 4th, 2018. So when I was looking for information as to what projects were open and what projects were closed, I actually found this on the state website in September 2019. So it goes back a year. So I actually found 13 projects outstanding. And these were 13 projects we actually sent up to the state and said, hey, which ones are open, which ones are closed. One thing you'll see there in that paperwork right there, if you just look at, as an example, look at Lincoln School Renovation Project. The first grant payment that the city received, and what a grant payment is, a reimbursement. So if our projects are 80% reimbursement, so if $1 million paperwork was submitted up to the state on a project, 80 cents on the dollars came back to the city. The last grant payment we received was 8/1/05, August 2005. I just told you earlier that project officially may be as closed as of June 20th, 2020. So almost 15 years later, the final payment comes over to the city. So you'll notice that these are last grant payment, but none of these projects were closed.
And I will say too, and Kevin and I have had this discussion back and forth, but this is context too to this. Prior to 8 to 10 years ago, there was no such thing as alliance dollars. And former superintendents had to make, and board members had to make some really tough decisions about what they were cutting from their budget. We get north of $17 million now with alliance, right? So we're almost a spoiled group, right? We don't know the hardship that Dr. Kurtz maybe faced years ago when she had to make a decision between teachers, facilities, and facilities, in some respects, we cut supervisors then. We did have them, but they had to make those hard decisions. As the money, again, and I know it's probably sometimes we see when we put new positions, but we're really just claiming what we had to take away. So I'm saying that because just provide context to why maybe some of the things went unnoticed. And you'll see later, because I Susan, I learned from Kevin, I say, well, where's the disconnect between that school building project being closed? And why wasn't there a second check or a third check from someone to say, hey, we still have open projects? And we'll get to that slide in a bit. Because there needs to be that feedback and that accountability with that for these things.
Next slide, Matt. Now, this next slide really just gives you an understanding on school construction projects. School construction projects are not 100% financed by the city or municipality. The city only bonds its portion of it. As an example, you can see below, let's just assume we have a school construction, a renovation cost of $50 million. Let's just say the total cost was $50 million. Forget if the project was $55 million. The total cost is $50 million. And if the state share is 80% and the city share is 20%, you would receive $40 million in state grants, and the city would bond the other $10 million. all school construction projects are maintained in the city's finance accounting system. It's a city project, you know.
What does that mean, Kevin? Because all school construction are maintained on the city account. So if there's a project, they have all of it.
Yes, they actually, yeah, so as, you know, as a former finance director, I would actually see all the Board of Education's projects. I would sort of manage just the accounting portion of it. And I would understand by looking at the accounting system as to if the Board of Education or the business manager, director of facilities, whatever, who it may be, along with Public Building Committee, if they're falling short on paperwork. You have a question?
Yeah, so to that point though, like, you should know that you are expecting $10,000 from this, or $10 million from this project.
Yes.
It should show as outstanding somewhere.
Yes.
Okay.
And so as a finance department, you know, you should know that. You should be, at the same time, it's a check and balances. If things aren't working well enough, you shouldn't find out 15 years later that, hey, we didn't receive all the funds on this project. So if you look at this and you say $50 million project and 80% comes from the state and $10 million comes from the city, let's think about this. Let's say we spent $50 million and we got reimbursed for $40 million. You know, we got reimbursed for $38 million, but we never did the final closing. Does that mean the city's share is $12 million? I don't know how you balance the project. Did they finance too much to the taxpayers? But the other money should have been there. So that's how you close a project out appropriately. So when you look at a couple years ago when the mayor had the article in the paper and it talks about, we know you haven't closed out Gaffney project because it was just finished like 2 years early and they were waiting the time. The deal here is no project prior to Gaffney, it appears, may have been closed out. And this goes back to several administrations, all the way back to 2003. So this is an ongoing situation. Other than saying closing Gaffney project out, maybe none of the projects would have ever been closed out. So when I discovered this list and I talked to the superintendent, I was a little stunned that there's a possibility that there could be a couple projects outstanding. I thought there was a couple. I was stunned when I found out all the projects were outstanding.
And I still think it's the right thing to do, close out the project that we should have closed out 15 years ago. And bring the money that owed the city back to the city. But I think it shines a light on, there's a disconnect between, having you said you've gone out and worked on the city side of the budget, and we need to see those projects listed.
Yeah,
All the projects.
yeah. As an example, you know, one thing with any finance systems, it could be the city system, it could be a town system, whatever. You'll see a list of all capital projects out there. And when I was a finance director, if the Board of Education was behind on a capital project, I still listed that capital project because I didn't receive all my money yet. I wouldn't allow you to spend money on it, but the project still listed until all the funds came in, and we were able to basically balance it to zero. Which meant if we had to do another financing or we had to, budget additional funds to go into that project to close it out, that's how you did it. So in order to close out a project properly, there should be a matching of expenses to revenues. At the end of the day, it's a break even. You have to make sure your revenues, which are grants, bond dollars, or whatever source they are, equal your total expenditures.
So somewhere along the way, in the 15 years, right, of completing the project to date, there was a breakdown in, nobody was saying, hey, where's the money?
Yeah.
And
And that-
the one thing we did say was, the school building committee, what is their role in overseeing the building of the project?
And you'll see that. So like, if you turn the page, man, we'll talk about the city's building committee. The next page. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The next page is really, when you think about, there's rules and regulation. This is really beautiful about this school building committee. There are some really well-written rules on how to run a school building committee. So it's not like the city ordinance or charter didn't really basically specify how you should operate. It specifies. There's an ordinance out there that talks to you how you're supposed to run your committee and what your rules are. Like for an example here, we found out section 2-307 is report on work in progress required. It basically says on a monthly basis that the school building committee will report to the Board of Education, Common Council, Mayor, Board of Finance and Taxation. You know, I'm going on 9 years here, and I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. In my 8.5, 9 years here, school building committee has never met with Board of Education. If they did, I was half asleep or I was sleeping. It's never happened. They never met annually, you know. So when you look at a rule out there that says it's required, and if it's not something that makes sense, then you have to change the rules. But these rules have always been there for a number of years, and they're not being met. Another rule out there is section 2-313, which we're all kind of aware of now. It says employment architects, engineers, and construction reps. Their approval or their contracts or approval of using them has to be approved by you as the Board of Education and by the county. I know for a fact that this summer, this board did not approve the architects, the construction manager, or the construction rep. I do know for a fact, going back to the project prior to this one, the same thing didn't happen, because I was actually able to go back to the board minutes from Mr. Kanata, and I believe that it never happened for the project prior to that, which was, you know, I think Gaffney and, yeah, I think it was Gaffney, maybe Deal Road. I don't believe it's ever happened. So
What's never happened?
your board has approved those.
Always approved.
Yeah. You never approved, you never, you know, all you ever did in the past times, you did approve vendors, but you approved those vendors after, your subcontractors. So those all those other contracts that they hired for the other vendors. Yes.
Right.
Yes. So for an example, there's always process. When you think about a public building committee, or you think about ourselves, you know, we go out and we go for a transportation vendor. We go out and we send an RFP out there and we receive proposals. Now, when we look at those proposals, how do we look at those proposals? We basically form a group of people. It might be myself, the superintendent, a couple of board members. We go through it and we basically rate them and we evaluate them. That's the same thing with a school building committee. They're supposed to be doing the same thing. It's my understanding it doesn't really happen. It really was happening by the director of facilities who would go through it, and for the most part would basically help them come to the decision. There's very little evaluation. That's my understanding that has gone through that. And those are rules they're supposed to be doing. But at the same time, they're supposed to come back to you as a board. No matter how they come up to a decision, you as a board and say, we recommend X, Y, and Z to be your architect. And then you can ask the question as to why. Or as a board member, you could say, I would like to see what they submitted. That's your right. It's always your right to review, to see how'd you come to that decision. You know, but nothing's ever come in front of the board, so you're not going to have that decision come to you. You know, until recently, Section 2-25 has been violated for a number of years. You know, Section 2-25 says all meetings have to be at 6 p.m. or later. School building committee used to have meetings at noon, all the time, and you know, it's my understanding the meeting was really done because that's when they wanted to have it. It doesn't really matter. You think about it as a public. The public has to mean you as a Board of Education, even if you're not a standing member of that committee, or any of us, or some person, we have a right to go to those meetings. At noontime, most of you work. So I really think, you know, you're not going to go to a meeting. Even if you're a liaison to the school building committee or somebody that the board appoints, which ones you can go out at 12 o'clock to go to a meeting?
I remember asking a few times.
So there's been, you know, yeah. You know, yeah, and so recently a lot of the comments have come back after the fact. It says, well, you know, Board of Education never took the responsibility. At the same time, you as a Board of Education, along with the superintendent, really was never given the rules of what the responsibilities are. These rules for the school building committee are rules that the school building committee should have gotten when they were appointed. This is on the city, where you basically say, these are the rules you follow. If you actually work for the city, let's say you're the finance director for the city, you have a charter that you have to meet. And the finance director probably meets the charter with all dates. This is the same thing. This is a school building committee. They have rules to follow. This is something, every time you have a new member in a school building committee, it could be the council next door, or somebody sits down and says, hey guys, this is what you have to follow. They haven't been following many of the rules. Now you pointing out the rules to the school building committee, and the excuse I'm hearing is, well, you've always allowed us to do it, so we have the power to do so. No, ignorance is not an excuse. Yeah. So that's school building committee. Next slide is New Britain High School ADA code compliance. Being educated on this myself, this is something we had compliance issue in New Britain High School since 2007. And really the state was looking for, it'd be a costly situation, they were looking for movement on this compliance. We discovered that for the most part over the last 4 or 6 years, things kept getting, many things were accomplished, but many things were not accomplished. So every 2 years, many dates, 2016 date would be changed to 2018, and the 2018 date would be changed to 2020. Our facilities director was really in charge of ADA code compliance, and it just so happens that the last date was December 2020, which is after his retirement date. So when we came to us, we basically looked at it, went through it. We had a conversation with the state, a conference call. It really didn't go as well, but we're working on it. We're going to correct it. That's the great thing about it. Everything's correctable. What you're going to see up there is a New Britain High School code violation project, 089-0165. That was one of the 12 projects. Paperwork has been filed to close it out. The money has been expended. In our conference call with the state, they said, hey guys, I don't know what you spent it on, but you had all these things to do. And I'm sure we spent it, on proper things. These are things you haven't done or even approached, and you keep pushing them off. Well, the state really came and said, these have to be corrected. And these will not be funded by any additional state grants. So Mr. Dion will talk about this later as to all the ADA things, and there's an action plan out there, and we're going to correct it. Next slide, Matt. Oh, Nancy, I'm sorry. Nancy, one of the things that, just to bring up slowly, this is really Connecticut General Statute. It really talks about when a project when you need to break ground. And really the statute says you have to break ground 2 years after the legislation approves it. We did receive a letter that was dated for October 2nd, 2020, and it basically told us you have until October 2nd, 2022 to break ground. Recently, there's been a lot of discussions back and forth. School building committee, an attorney on the city side, an outside attorney that has alleged that, you need to break ground by July 1st, this coming July 1st, or the project's gone. Now, the statute's very clear. You have to break ground 2 years from this past October. So it's over a year and a half to break ground.
Right, so the clock is ticking as far as we want our kids to be in the new Chamberlain. I mean, I don't know any of this. I think, what we've really been trying to hold true to over the last several years is just process and procedure. None of us involved or inside of the process of procedure.
Yes, I think the superintendent said, you as a board have rights, and you gotta, you can express your rights. I think sitting on the Board of Education side and administration, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm very frustrated to basically look at projects that should have been closed probably 2 years after the fact. I think we all been in positions, every one of us has been in positions where you walk into a position and you really don't know how to be what you're gonna be. It's the same thing, no, you know, you take the superintendent, becomes a superintendent, sees what other superintendents do, but doesn't actually have the full understanding what the job's gonna be. Same thing with a principal, when a person goes up to a principal. It's the same thing, we all did it. I mean, I've done it myself as a finance director or a business manager, whatever you call it. I'm sure everybody in this room has gone into a job saying, hey, I don't know everything, but I'm gonna be able to do it because the person before me did it. So what I'm saying is, if you have somebody to do a job, it may take them a little while to get up to speed. It may take them a year more to close out the first project. But we hadn't had a project closed out in pretty much 20 years. And you can't go backwards. You know, once you finish something, you got to basically close it out. One thing with our conference call at the state, they made an issue with us and said, hey, you know, we shouldn't allow you to do any school construction project because we have rules here that says if you don't close out your project, we won't give any financing. So, I mean, it was kind of weird. I'm thinking to myself, we're trying to be polite. Hey, guys, did you even know we didn't close these projects out? I mean, it was sort of like a couple different ways around. And we understand. We're serious about closing these projects, but, you know, 12 projects. You know, and just hearing about a Gaffney project, which is really the 12th project not being closed, or the 13th project not being closed out. We're talking 12 projects prior to that weren't closed out either. And that's what's very difficult.
Well, I think it's difficult when you find that there have been some errors made on every side, right? It's every side. City should have, you know, maybe a better accounting system of what sometimes is building, the building committee. There is a breakdown in communication somewhere,
Yeah.
right? And if it, and again, we recognize when the board of education employees own things like that. But now, I mean, now we know, and so now we have to fix.
So that's my question. How are you fixing, so this doesn't happen once we ever start changing them again? Like, how are you not gonna fall into, I didn't close this project because whatever the reasons were, they didn't get closed?
Well,
I think that's a good question, Gail, but I don't know if it's
$10,000 the first time, I don't know how
Yeah.
much we're spending now.
you know,
Like-
I can't explain this because this is like beyond my, you know, whatever. This is something that I can't understand how it happened. How do you do it? You basically have to trust people. I mean, I think this is a black mark against many people. The city, school building committee. Hey, we're part of it too because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
the person that ran these projects worked for us. Now, we didn't understand the rules, and now we do understand the rules. And I think from this point forward, I'm pretty sure from this point forward, the Board of Education in the next 20 years will understand that they have a right to basically see and talk and ask. And I'm sure, you know, when I look at the board members here, you know, I've been going on 9 years. We had members that are been on the board for, you know, those 8 or 9 years. People drop off, so we do have consistency here. It's going to happen. You know, one thing too is, you know, we talk about it, we look at the Smalley project, and I know some of the board members will look at Smalley and say, you know, it came $4 million under budget, and that's like a big deal. It really isn't a big deal because when you think about it, that project is 80% reimbursed. You know, that means that the state would have gave you, if you spent that $4 million, the state would have gave you $3.2 million, and you as a taxpayer would pick up the other $800,000. We're finding out with the Smalley project, we have a gym floor that's basically coming up. We found out differences with the Gaffney project. So at the end of the day, when I hear about, you know, projects coming under budget or whatever, and I'm finding out all the problems with the project, you know, if we spent the money and we built it correctly, we wouldn't be having these problems today.
Right.
I'm not
That's
saying we
it.
spend the full thing, but you basically spend it and you make sure, it's like building a house. You make sure you build the house right versus taking shortcuts.
Right.
And that's on us right now. But I think you as a board realize we have to be more involved.
Right. Agree.
So, any other questions before we move on and let Kevin Dion, just kind of go through?
Yeah, I just, what do you see as the implications of audits being done 10 and 15 years after the project is closed?
Well, I think, you know, one of the things, Mr. Gay, you know, I think one of the problems we had this time around, and it's still a problem, and this is, you know, when you have finance systems and all that, it's a city too, they have actually changed their system, you know, once or twice. So one of the problems we found out here was some of the paperwork that was done on expenditures from 13, 15 years ago, they didn't keep it. So we ran into a problem with our former facilities director going over to the city and finding out that system was gone. And they had to go back and recreate things. Just today, I got an email from our consultant looking for financial information from 3 of the earlier projects, which their systems, you know, so we would have to reach out to the city for the upteen time. But I know the former facilities director received information, so now we're gonna be looking through files to try to determine what we can salvage, and if needed, we're gonna have to send a request over. So there's a possibility you're not getting every dollar you should get. But I think when you look at the dollars the city is getting, the time value, so we look at $1.2 million being received on one project and 1.3, that's 13, 15 years after the fact. You know, and if you just do a low cost of interest, 1 or 2% a year, that $1.2 million should be 1.3, 1.4 million. There's lost money right there. You know, so there is, you know, it's, yeah, and you're not really sure, you know, at this point in time, I'm not sure you're getting your full reimbursement because who knows? You know, but when you do a capital project, you're really supposed to, you know, when you look at it on a school construction project, it's actually two sides. It's cut from the city's books, invoices and records. At the same time, the Board of Education will take a duplicate copy of those invoices and records and stick it in the file. We found out later on from some of the earlier projects that wasn't happening. So they had to go back and try to recreate records. And of course, there's rules out there that you can get rid of records after, you know, I think 7 years. So there were records that have been disposed of. And if you don't keep a file cabinet of it, you got a problem. So, you know, that's not gonna happen in the future.
No, just the fact that we brought it up, right?
Yeah.
We didn't kick the can, you know, and it wasn't like anyone brought it up to us. We called the
Yeah.
state knowingly going, there's too much we don't know about this department, and we're gonna have a mass exodus of anyone who has the knowledge, and we wanted to get a handle, so we have a handle.
Yeah, and I agree with the superintendent. To be honest with you, there's a very good chance that we didn't contact the state, 5 years from now, those 12 projects still wouldn't have been closed out. Because we wouldn't have known they existed, and the state never told us, you know, they had to be closed out either.
Right. And we,
Yeah, and as Superintendent was talking earlier, I went back to the 2019 city's financial, and the only 4 projects that were showing up on their financials were Gaffney, De Loretto, New Britain High School. Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was Smalley. There was only 4 projects, and out of those 4 projects, only 2 were the 12 projects that we were talking about. So they disappeared from the financials.
And that just could have been a change in administration too, right?
Yeah.
You don't know why, you don't know.
No, I mean, I know myself personally, you know, the finance department next door now has new leadership over the last 3 or 4 years. That leadership over there, the person that they hired, probably wouldn't have known what happened, you know, the 16 years prior. I mean, they wouldn't have known that unless the people who worked there told them about it. But, you know, and that's the reason why I think the only one they caught was the Gaffney project, but the other ones were prior to that person's time.
So you know what I'm still super unclear on? Who closes the project?
School building, okay, official closing out a project needs to have school building officials' approval along with the Board of Education approval. If you can all
Okay.
recall, probably last year at one time, our facilities director, former facility director came in front of the board. There was a resolution to close out, you know, 12 or 13 capital projects.
Yep, I do recall that.
That same
Okay.
resolution went back to the school building committee too. And it caused a little problem because actually it was supposed to be the school building committee, my understanding had to be the actual school building committee for each one of those projects, which wasn't a fact. But I think the state waived that because some of those members weren't on the school building committee back in 2003, 2005. Many of them are long-standing, but not all of them were.
Okay.
So they really should have been closing those out, you know, within 2 years after the.
Because they're the ones,
Yeah.
they pay all the bills, they, you know, like,
Yes.
right, they pay all the bill. We just say, okay, here's your schematic design, here's like every phase of the project. They submit something to us and we approve it.
Yeah.
But they pay the bills, they write the checks to,
Well, the
oh, you know what I
city,
mean?
yeah, the city
Like,
does, yeah, yeah.
they approve those bills.
They approve the bills, yes.
Okay.
They're actually like the department head.
Okay. Just trying to figure out where we,
Yeah, do we need a policy or something to say, I mean, I know the ordinance tell them that they should be reporting back to us.
Well, the ordinance is very clear.
Yeah, but do we
I
need
mean,
something so that the board members know that they're supposed to be getting reports
Well,
from them?
no, you're right, and I think one of the things myself and superintendent, we I don't wanna say we laughed about it, we kinda laughed about it, because if you think about it, and I think several members talked about that, they're always CC'd on school building committees, packages as if they receive everything, and we found out later on, just because you're CC'd doesn't mean you receive it, and you probably have never
all of
received
them
it.
say that.
Yeah, and,
I never saw notes from a
Then I
school
go crazy, I go,
ever.
did I get it? I don't remember.
that's great when you get a letter written to you, you never knew you got it.
We
So,
were looking
yeah.
at something, you're exactly correct. We were in one of the meetings and I said, "Oh, this says CC board members," and I was like, I've never seen anything, any note. Okay,
No, you-
I appreciate it. And to your point, maybe we need something in, like, our book of works that say,
Yes.
when there's a school building project, make sure you follow these steps and you see these items along the way, because I don't necessarily know that.
Right.
We need to know that stuff.
No, and I think, this isn't to point fingers, it's to remedy problems that have been in existence for years.
Right.
But again, once you find out what the right way is, you've gotta do the right way. And that doesn't,
The city is so concerned about the taxes and stuff, I mean, this is money
money.
that they should be going after.
Right, right.
And
That's
I am
$2.5 million.
grateful for the 500,000, but I think about kind of the rough road we've struggled with to close these projects out, and we've given $2.5 million back that no one even knew. It's kinda like Ed McMahon showing up on your doorstep. And,
Right, and we're using that allocation from the $2.5 million that the city received from our closed projects. They allocated $500,000 that we will now go back and put into
our
the
ADA,
ADA
That's right.
non-compliance or whatever we're calling it.
Yes.
The code violations.
yes.
But hey, at least we have that, the 500,000.
That's right.
Right?
We'll take that.
We could fix that.
Yep. And now that kind of segues, Kevin, are you good if Kevin Dion
Yes, I'm working
starts
with
up?
that, yes.
Yeah, I
Kevin
was just
Dion,
gonna-
can you hear?
Thanks, Kevin.
Any questions? No, we're good.
Kevin
Okay.
Dion, yeah,
All right, so I do have your presentation up. I don't know if you can see that.
yes, I can see it, I actually have a hard copy here, I'll go along with
Okay, so go ahead and tell me when, I'm the page turner here.
it. Okay. So, in early December, we were contacted by the state. They were discussing that we had a lot of, back in 2007, there were ADA violations found both within some of the city parks and fields, as well as at the high school. We were notified that the prior facility director had said that most of these items that were still open were going to be completed by December 20th, but no one had, December 2020, but no one had been notified that we were going to be completing these by December 2020. So when the state reached out to us, we had to take a look at the original 2007 document and find out what had been done. We had to quickly come up to speed, and then we had to have discussions with the state to say what our corrective actions would be. When we did the 2007 report throughout the years, some of what I call the low-hanging fruit had been completed, the easier tasks. But the more expensive, or the tasks that required architectural code design development, were pushed off, and they were continually pushed off, and they were pushed off finally to at some point last year, early last year, was decided they would all be completed in December 2020. So at that point, we had to bring in specialists, we had to bring in construction advocacy professionals. Those are the individuals who also did the prior 13 projects for the closure, finding out where we stood with these projects. They did the same. For the past few weeks, we've had a team out at the high school, and we've been evaluating where we stand on these projects. What you see before you is the results of that. This has been submitted to the state. We are in the process of talking to the state. They want completion of all these items as soon as possible, since most of these have been open since 2007. If you want to just, there's a chart, Nancy, if you
Are
want
you
to.
gonna make me
first.
turn it? Are you talking about this one?
No, keep going.
Oh,
Go
good.
faster if you would, because that's so small, I'll actually describe it
Item one?
Item one.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna go quickly, there's a lot of items here, but I just want everyone to understand what we're looking at and the complexity of some of these. The site work for the parking lot, that's not difficult. We're gonna, really ADA compliance, accessibility, language, and signage and access. So for the item one, is exterior work that needs to get done, there's signage that needs to be put in. A lot of these items are also based on the time of year. We can't be drilling into asphalt in the winter, so if we're putting in signage, we would have to wait until spring or warmer season to do that. But the items that we're getting is all accessible signage updated with the new state approved signage, crosswalks need signage, confirm accessible routes from athletic fields, and accessible ramp adjustments. We did that with some of the tactile pads in the back as well. So we've been working on that since my arrival, but there is more to be completed. If you want to go to items 2,
Yep.
page, we found that many of the doors in the high school do not have a 5-pound push-pull, so adjustments are needed to be made there. Automatic push door openers don't function or don't exist on certain exit and entrance doors, so those have to be installed. There's protruding objects that are around the school, and there's a larger list that identifies them. But these are objects that are trip hazards or objects that can catch someone who is ADA, needs access to some of these areas. Signage, again, exit signs were not accessible, they weren't even working, they're not braille exit signs. We need to update some of our bathroom signs as well. Item number 5, the next page, is really where we start getting into some of the larger items. This hits many classrooms. As you can see, the media center, special education, life skills, construction programs, art, ceramic. And what it is that there's wheelchair accessibility both for the tables, for the teachers as well as students. So we want to verify that at least one desk has an accessible desk for both staff and students. We need to keep going to item 6, we got to verify pull stations are in each program. Some pull stations were put in, some pull stations still need to go in. As you can see there, culinary, career, home ec. Also with culinary, home ec, and the food programs, a lot of the equipment needed to become ADA compliant. So we have to have the sink, the range, the dishwasher, refrigerator, freezer. So there's actual structural work for equipment, so we can get the equipment in there. So we have to do some work on the flooring. Item 8 is the kitchen cafeteria. We have to verify that we have enough clear space between all of our appliances, which refers back to item 7. We have to make sure we have food prep sinks that are accessible. The grease traps need to be removed from the floor, need to be updated. The ANSEL system is our fire suppression system. So when you look in the kitchen, the cafeteria, to make it ADA compliant, there is a lot that needs to be done, and both in design, and this will require us to bring in an architect, or work with an architect to make sure that we're being compliant. The locker rooms, the showers don't have the rails. A lot of these bathrooms, the auditorium bathrooms, also those little bits. Those don't have all of the ADA compliance. In fact, the boys and girls bathroom off the auditorium, you cannot even get a wheelchair in there because of the way it's set up. So there'll be some major redesign that needs to go for those bathrooms. Coach's office down in the locker room is not accessible. We have to get faucets that have paddles so that somebody who's in a wheelchair can reach out and still wash their hands. So there's fixtures that need to be replaced. Next item 10, elevator lifts. Elevators don't have the notification lantern, they don't have a call button. Also, the elevator, the call buttons were too high, those need to be lowered. So we need to make sure that we have the buttons are all accessible from a sitting position. Going on to item 11, it's what I spoke of before. These bathroom doors that have turns and they have hallways, need to have the turning radius. And on some of them, we do not have the accessible turning radius or the compatible heights. Some of the hand dryers and paper towel dispensers and the railings are just too high, so we're going to have to look at modifying some of the rooms as well as heights of some of the sinks. So that was both second and third floor men's and women's gang bathroom would need to be modified, hallway bathrooms, kitchen staff bathrooms, auditorium, dressing room, will need some work as well. These are full bathroom renovations, so they're gonna take a while to do. Going to the auditorium, item number 12. The auditorium is going to take up a lot of time. The auditorium is not very much ADA accessible. The control room, which is one of the largest items, it needs to be accessible currently where it is, or we need to move to a new location, and that may require a loss of seating in an auditorium. The last thing you want to do is lose seating, but we may have to. Handicap seating, bar stops, orchestra pits not accessible. The ramp to the music has no landing. The ADA, some of the heights of the railings are not accessible. Exit doors need signage, and then just basic handicap access backstage to the auditorium. The ramp slope is too steep, so we would either have to get a lift or modify a ramp, which again is a large undertaking. So going back to I know I went through it quickly, ask if you have any questions, but I'm going to go back to that Gantt chart. That was the one we originally went through, the one that's at an angle. It's hard to see, but when we look at it, a lot of the projects are 60-day windows. So when you look at the bathroom renovations, when you look at the ADA compliance in the auditorium, right now with what's being spec'd out with the company that we had come in, they are saying 60 days on a lot of the items will be needed, as well as funding, and we are in the process of figuring out how much all of this will cost. Locker rooms, the bathroom renovations, if we were to start, we're looking at about a 2-month time frame for all of those. There are some smaller items that we'll be able to take care of quickly, such as the parking lot items, the signage and the exit signs, the braille. We can take care of that. Protruding items, we can take care of that. But I think a lot of the items that were left on this list were left for a purpose, because you need an architect to make sure we need structural, make sure we're not moving any walls that are structural. So we'll need structural engineering. We'll need to come up with a design. We'll need to make sure everything's ADA compliant. And then our cafeteria and our kitchen, home ec, any of our training classes need to make sure that they are fully ADA compliant, which would mean us to require us to get more equipment, modern equipment, which is another expense, and making sure that that equipment actually can fit in the existing kitchen if we don't go with the full renovation. So we're in the process of speccing all that out and finding out exactly where we stand. We have responded to the state. We responded to the state at the end of December, and we are giving them, we also sent them something a couple weeks ago with our action plan. So we told them in December we were aware of it, we're working on it, and just about a week ago we sent in our action plan, this plan you see before you, what we're looking at, and then we will have discussions going forward with the state on how to correct these and what funding is needed.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank
Any questions?
you. I know I do, but I
Yep.
just can't formulate it just yet.
Because it's cold.
It's cold,
So-
it's cold. This makes my brain hurt.
Yeah.
Is this the only school that is not in compliance? Well, that's a good thing,
Yeah.
right? But I do
Yeah.
recall, my memory does serve me well sometimes, but I do recall him coming to us saying, we're doing X, Y, and Z, and we're gonna plan on this, and we're gonna plan on that. So, it's frustrating. I'm sure it is for you guys, it's very frustrating.
Yeah, and I know that some of those, desks that were wheelchair accessible were purchased, because for the special ed students that we had gotten them, but they could be in the storage room or they could be in the trash.
Right, they are somewhere, cause I recall purchasing them, and he was going through the science rooms. He was supposed to be redoing all the science
I
rooms, all the
remember
home
that,
ec rooms, and redoing all of it, so.
Correct, so the furniture, some of the furniture was purchased, from what I showed you, it's not all the rooms that were originally on the list. But it was piecemeal, and it was not properly, and again, a lot of what is left here are the more expensive items that will require a team and a lot more time and money. So the low-hanging fruit, we'll say, was the first thing that we are taken care of.
Yeah.
Now we're left with what's left, and the state
Okay.
required to do this, we did this.
And, you know, it's probably the best year to do this, right? Just
The
because of
schools are
money.
100%.
And so, and it's not that this list was neglected, it was, what can we afford to do right now with what we have, you know, and that's,
And
You
I'm
know.
there, I am there with you, so now here's my other question. Based on the conversation that we just had about school building projects, are these going in, I'm gonna say the wrong school dude, whatever it's called, right? Do these projects go into that application, or do they just live on this project plan? Because us as a board, now I feel like in 6 months, I have to say, hey, Mr. Dion, can you tell me where you are with action plan with project 1, item 1?
Yeah.
Show me the pictures, where are you? Like, I feel like we have to be like hawks now and watching everything about everything.
Well,
Because you come to us and ask us for money, which our job is, like, we answer to the public for their taxpayer dollars,
right.
right? And now we're saying not we didn't do our job, but like, I feel like we need to watch now.
Yeah.
Well, I think we feel,
Yeah,
I definitely as superintendent feel we have to watch now,
Yeah.
right? But that's what we've been working on over the last 4 years is accountability. And so the fact that we come with it means that we don't hide things.
right,
Um,
we shouldn't be.
No, you shouldn't, and I'm not saying that people did, and again, to your point, I think something like this, while it might not go on School Dude, but if you know 10 years ago that there are these big capital projects that need to be done, there needs to be a separate, even if it's a Google Doc, right?
There needs to be something.
Some documentation of here are the items and here's when we're gonna complete it, and again, it goes back to, just having historical, information to say when what was done.
Right.
Agreed. And maybe School Dude is the right place to house it, Kevin. Okay, Dion. I don't know.
Cause like, I don't know
So
a lot about that.
these items will be entered to School Dude, but this will be treated due to the urgency of it and the state's request. This will be treated as a totally separate project, and we'll be making sure that we track all these and that we close out all of these ADA codes. The School Dude is okay, we'll definitely put it in there, but to continually track it, I would rather go with this packet that we're using to be able to check all this off and have more of an open discussion, because we'll want to, I want to get into a large discussion on how School Dude sorts information, but you wouldn't want to put these all in as one work order. These would be multiple work orders with multiple priorities, with multiple locations. So we would want to, I'd want to enter these for tracking purposes, to make sure we know where we are, but actually, as a side note, track this as its own separate full project.
Right, in like Google Docs or something, so
Yeah.
when you walk away 2 years from now, like
Right.
somebody can pull that up and say, well, look at, this is where we are with that, right? Cause don't be surprised in like 2 months from now, when I say, hey, you wanna know what comes on the agenda, can you give me a status on everything you said you were gonna get done January, February of this year? And that's not being disrespectful, I feel like that's our duty.
But, and
as
I
this
think
group.
also, I mean, we've had our internal discussion, both Kevin's and myself, that this has always been a finance and facilities meeting, right? And it morphed to finance. When I got here, it was really just finance with an occasional cameo appearance of facilities, right? And so now Kevin Dion knows that you're coming every month to give updates.
Right.
To give updates.
And in the former, he would come when he wanted to buy new trucks.
Yeah,
Or
sure.
do projects, he came with his pictures.
Yeah.
Cause he knew I liked that, like, prove to
Right.
me why you think you
Right.
need a new truck.
Right.
So
But
it
I just
isn't,
think it's a better to have a steady diet every month, even if there's nothing new to report. He's
Right.
available to ask questions if you
Right.
have questions about existing projects.
cause since we bought School Dude, is it called
It's
School
called
Dude?
School Dude.
Okay.
It's called Boys to Men.
It's called Boys to Men, Boys to School. Stop it, I'm never gonna live that down, ever, I know it. Cause
Seeing
like,
that they're 75 already, but.
because for the longest time, like, so many things now play back in my head about, we're gonna do the school dinner, we're gonna have everything in there, and then we're gonna have everything, we're gonna know when the boilers need to be replaced and when
Yep.
they need to be serviced. And then what sticks in my head too, and Kevin, don't scream, but like, John Leone sat in front of us and said they were gonna start cross-training our custodians to do some of the things that we outsource to. Like when we call in plumbers, like, how to unclog a toilet, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Did we ever get there?
I'll let Kevin take that, but I bet I can wager a bet is
Right.
no.
So I'm gonna be quiet now, cause now I'm off in a little bit more of a tangent off topic
Right.
of this, but
I know, I hear, when I say to you that this
all that
department
stuff comes back.
has been
Right,
This is the work this year, is
right. And I
putting
do
structures in
know,
place.
cause like you could probably go back to meetings and watch me go on a rant. You guys would take, no,
We
imagine that.
agree.
You would take money from facilities to do something else, cause I can recall specifically saying, we rent out the auditorium.
Yep.
And these bathrooms look like that, and it always like, it's on the list, it's on the list,
Yeah.
But obviously, that list just never came
Well,
to
it's on the
fruition.
short list now.
That was for the short list.
I couldn't see that chart from
Yep.
back here because it was tiny and I'm in the back of the room. But I did see
Burned in my
that there were a
brain.
bunch of things at the bottom that looked like they took a longer period of time. What's the time frame on that thing?
Don't worry, it's burned in my brain, Meryl.
Kevin, Kevin D, on the end date on the Gantt chart is, isn't it August 21?
Yep.
So
Those
August,
are the
okay, so
60-day
we're trying
items.
to,
The ones you see at the bottom, the large block items, those are the bathroom renovations, those are the cafeteria. Those are larger, those are 60-day windows, and those we'll put at the bottom just to show how long that would take.
and so the goal is to get it all done before the start of the new school year?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's our goal.
That is forward.
We'll keep you updated, like the stock market.
I gotta put on my Nick hat for a second. Do we have to go out to bid for this stuff?
Do you want to update on some other items?
Say that again?
The question is, do we need to go out to bid on these things, or are these all gonna be done by in-house personnel?
Are we going to RFP? Do we need
No,
a,
we'll have,
go ahead.
we'll have to, that's RFP, yes.
Yes.
We could do some of it in-house, but most of it what could have been done in-house has already been done. And then we'll have to break these up and RFP out, or RFQ out the rest.
Okay. Cause this cap, Diamato, whatever, is just, I'm trying to read your, assigned
It was a company
to.
that was brought in by the advocacy construction.
Okay.
Gail, Tony has his hand raised.
Oh, sorry, I can't. Tony? Your little hand is up in the corner?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, actually, it goes to the previous discussion, and Nancy kind of hit on it a little bit. If we do have open projects of any significance, if we could just have regularly monthly updates, I think as, finance and facilities committee, that's what we need to do for our due diligence, and, everyone does our part, then we should be in a much better place going forward.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Right there with you. I know. You can't see, like, it's like this big, and I didn't mean it.
It's very small.
Yeah, it's like teeny tiny. Okay, I'm gonna just be quiet, cause I'm super frustrated right now. I know. All right, I gotta flip back. Anybody have any questions? Comments, concerns? I'm assuming like there's a bunch of steps in this project. Man.
You have the copy, right?
Oh, I do. It's, now I've already looked at it, it's burnt in my brain, so I know when everything is supposed to be done. I'm kidding, I don't. But I'm gonna print it and put it on my refrigerator. Oh, wait, let me poke Kevin.
Kevin D, are you hearing her? She's having fun at your expense.
I can see your face.
How about it?
Okay,
Kevin, you must not know how cold it is here. Can
It
you
is.
tell?
Yeah, it's like sub-zero in here.
it is, like, I'm frozen.
Yeah,
All right.
okay, I think there's,
How do I get out of this?
What's next?
Oh, I gotta go back to the top, right? So we're good, like, are we just gonna include this in our packet for next, we don't need to do, there's no action to it. Except to your point, Annie, is maybe having, I don't know if it's a policy, something on building, I don't know, I'll talk to Nick,
Yeah, talk to Nick.
something.
You lost the money flow.
Huh?
You lost the money flow.
I know, dang it, it's okay. All right, so, I flipped my whole packet, hold on, now it's upside down, sorry.
think we have a pretty good. Thank you, Mr. Dion. I apologize. You have been the brunt of my anger today. All right, so item D, accept a donation from Spotswood Ames Zion Church for the NB, New Britain Transition Center in the amount of $655. We love to take in money. Another one, partnerships, accept donation from South Church for, New Britain Transition Center in the amount of $1,000.
40,000,
What's that?
what did you say, 40,000?
1,000, sorry, my math, 1,000. Another one, accept donation from First Church of Christ Congregational for Prodigy Program in the amount of $2,000. Stop me if you have any questions. The explanations are usually further down in the packet. Item G, accept donations from Donors Choose for Smalley Elementary School in the amount of $3,511. And then they actually give a breakdown, I believe, of how they're going to use it. $517 for literacy center materials, $1,138 for Spire reading intervention, and then $1,845 for materials, books for classroom and classroom library. Love it, love it, love it. Any questions on those? Those, what is it? D, E, F, and G can go right to consent, unless anybody has any. Okay, item H, purchase order and bid waiver for new upper gym flooring at NBHS in the amount of $29,660. I don't know if Mr. Smedley is on, but this floor is not that old.
I don't know.
Is he on?
So
He could respond.
Kevin Dion here.
Okay.
To that. So we had a leak,
Oh, yep, okay.
we had a leak in the roof, and though we
Remember?
did get,
Yes, I do remember. I do, you know what, I remember.
I was with her when she found out about that.
I was sitting in the gym going, what in the world is happening right now? We had somebody who's standing over there with a broom, scooping water.
Do we have
cancel on
insurance or
volleyball.
something when something like that happens? Do we get insurance money?
not
like
in
homeowners?
the age of the roof, there's no
Yeah,
warranty
I
on the
didn't
roof,
go
it's null and void. We have the solar panels, which are going to be addressed, which need to be removed.
Oh, God,
Water leaking in underneath them.
good
So we're
luck with
having
that.
Looked at as well, but no, there's no insurance for that.
Yeah,
That
I
roof.
do recall that. Nancy recalls the text, what the?
We were
They
sitting
beat-
opposite ends of the
They like
gym.
stopped, I think, didn't they?
It
they
was
stopped it?
volleyball. We had to stop it.
And they did senior night at another school?
Yes.
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 Yep, okay,
That was a
sorry,
year ago.
I do recall that. Oh,
So what we did was we had a lot of water on the floor, but only certain areas did swell and buckle, and this was one of those areas. Unfortunately, in order to get a match, we're about 4 to 6 weeks just to get the wood to match, and then that wood alone would need about a week to sit inside the gym. When you do a wood floor, it needs time to sit in location, it's
Yeah.
acclimate. So we were also informed that as of January 19th, we would be getting basketball season, at least practice, we'd be starting to use the gymnasiums. So we do have a fix where the leak was, and where the damage is off to the side, but it's still a trip hazard for anybody walking by. The wood has truly buckled and created lifting on the floor, so it needs replacement. We've come up with a quick workaround. You put some plywood down, cut it out, and poly it so we can make it smooth, and it's not in a flare area, so we get it off to the side, but it will get repaired. In the meantime, time is of the essence, so there aren't many companies that do gym flooring. So Bugliati has been used by many schools throughout the state, and we'd like to just try to be able to proceed and get the wood ordered, so with the 4 to 6 week lead time, plus the week into the gymnasium, so that we can at least get our floor repaired, going forward.
okay, are they the ones who did the original floor? Do we know?
I'm not 100% sure they have done other work. I've actually used them in the past as well, but the district has used them as well. There aren't that many that do wood floors for that level. And this is gonna take some skill because we're actually not replacing the whole floor. So they have to keep tension on the floor part that they repair as they put the new boards in so that the rest of the floor doesn't start to shift.
Yeah.
So it's not easy work.
But good timing to do it, right? Because who knows how long basketball will actually carry on, you know? Could be a
Right.
whole new football season, go 3 weeks in and you're done.
Yeah, well.
So, I mean, it can happen. It can happen. All right, any questions on that? I'm gonna say consent, and then if somebody has a question, they can pull it off, because now that we talk about it, I do remember it. Item I, approve purchase order for Power School e-collect forms program in the amount of $23,451. I did not look at this, e-collect forms.
Jeff, I believe is on.
I was gonna say he was.
Jeff is
Jeff, are you still with us?
I am. I can give you a quick rundown of what this service does. And so as the name of e-collect forms and Power School kind of ties it all together, this is an ability for us to, instead of say living off of Google Forms and other types of collections or the more expensive Power School registration for forms, it's an additional service that we'd like to pursue, or it gives us that ability to, as it mentioned, collect those forms, but also effectively tie it back right into the database. And so it was discovered as an option that would help us pursue things like, as I see Ted Kerrigan on the line here, form for an application for the academies at the high school, looking at it for a summer school, a more affordable summer school form for sign up and things of that. So it's got a lot of different options across the entire district to pursue this. And it's a yearly cost that you're seeing, but I do believe I mentioned the renewal's a little bit less. You know, there's that installation or onboarding cost, that's like $5,000, I believe.
Yeah, okay. That's cool. Awesome, thank you. I would definitely, any questions on that? Could definitely put it to consent, I would think. Oh, item J, approve bid waiver for cabinets for CTE programs and academies at NBHS.
J through M have everything.
Oh, J through M,
CTM.
yep,
CTE, sorry.
CTE.
And Paul Kerrigan is.
You're there.
Look at that, oh, I like the background.
You mean Sandra's, not Paul.
Not Sandra's, well, Paul's like,
Yeah.
that's a very nice wall you have there.
Thank you.
All right, do you want to walk through, is it, sorry, it's JKL
And
and M.
Yeah, in general terms, for maybe some members that are new, the genesis of this was 2018. There was the Strengthening Careers in Technical Education for the 21st Century Act was signed into law. That caused Perkins to take the Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education Act 2006 was amended, calling itself now the Perkins 5. And they sort of updating what the standards are for career technical education. So to a clusters pathways program of study. And so it was our district's vision to upgrade our CTE, career technical education classrooms to match that vision. So in March of 2019, we began that process and began to update our CTE programs and academies at New Britain High School. This is just a continuation for the equipment that continues to do that. We're continuing to use the same vendors that we've been purchasing the equipment for. For example, the Vidmark cabinets are part of the vision of taking these smaller cabinets and putting them in between each of the equipment that we've upgraded, whether they be the vertical or horizontal milling machines that we have in our manufacturing rooms, so that each station can be self-contained where the students can come in, grab their tools, set up their station, do the work of the day, clean up, and move on, just as it would be in industry to make it align and really create a seamless pipeline to expose these students to what they would do here and what they would do at the next level, whether that be going to work right in industry or go to a certification program at Tunxus. For example, we're now working with a grant through ACI that's kind of like a pre manufacturing certification that would qualify our students to step right into a pre or manufacturing certification at Tunxus, or even to go work in industry. So it's really just a continuation of the work that was started in 2019.
I do recall that, and then COVID hit, yeah. I do remember Sandra coming, like, and talking about all this really cool stuff. All right, anybody have any
Right.
questions?
Very cool.
All right, are we okay with putting this to consent?
Yes.
Okay. J, K, L, and M.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
And I will say, just as a
ready for
side,
more specific questions, but okay.
I know.
I used up all my questions tonight.
I know, right?
I know, in respect for the temperature that's there,
It's free. I have UGG boots on. I'm frozen.
I know.
I will say, like, just as a side note, like, we gotta start advertising our academies, like, huge. I can't tell you how many times I talk to people outside and say,
Look to your left, right there.
we have
Right
it, we have it, we have it. Like, I didn't know, so
I know, I agree.
something, like, I look at these crack schools and they're all over the news. Okay.
I know, I agree.
All right, item N, approved budget transfers in the amount of $534,436,000. I'm just assuming that you're flip-flopping, once you go and get the money from the city, it'll just come in, or is that an additional?
No, these are, I think we talked about, we know that in our health insurance fund, we have a sufficient balance, so we're actually we're gonna still fund it, but we're taking transfers from medical insurance and using it for other purposes.
Okay,
So that's what you're seeing there. So I'm actually just giving you a summarization for the fiscal year, how much has actually total budget transfers at the bottom.
oh, that was the windows, got it.
Yeah, I didn't pick those up, so that's.
Okay.
The one that was back in
Okay.
August, September, yes.
My bad, you know what, I was making up the
Yes,
amounts in my
and
head.
the other two are recent ones that you are in front of you for tonight.
Okay. Sorry, let me go back down. Any questions on the budget transfers?
Hey, how are you?
Oh, you might want to go on mute, Mr. Kerrigan.
We can hear you, Ted.
My bad, as they say in the vernacular.
I could tell you a funny story, but I won't on live. All right. So the next one is accept the current, approve $500,000 of New Britain High School ADA improvements to be paid from the City of New Britain Special Revenue Fund for the Board of Education. I'm absolutely 100% hunky-dory with that. Anybody, we're good? Questions, comments? Nope.
Do we have anything close to a ballpark on what we think it's gonna cost?
No.
Overall, all of the projects?
It, Mr. Dion's working with the outside consultant. It's probably gonna be, $1 million plus. It could be $1.3 million to $3 million. We don't really know. But we feel that at this point in time, we may have sufficient funding within the own operating budget, along with the $500,000 to do the work that should have been done. So.
So next it will be like everything coming in for approvals for money to pay.
Yeah, and what's gonna happen too is, he's working with them, they're gonna actually come up with a better estimate, they're working on that right now, so they don't have an estimate now, they may have it by next week or the week after, but they're working up numbers.
You had to submit to the state. Okay. Item P, accept current and projected expenditure and revenue report, quarter ending December 31st, 2020. Any questions? Nope. probably put that item P to consent, and then accept financial report December 31st, 2020, on page 147. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Nope.
Perfect, you can move that one to consent too. I know, phew. Phew. Gifts done. I think we did it quicker than personnel though. I think that is it. It is 8:37, meeting adjourned.
What time do you start?
Thank you, thanks.